Heraclon Publishing presents Red Wolf, written by Jennifer Dance, narrated by Jacques Nadjiwon. May this story open hearts and minds to the history of Canada and the long suffering of our First Nations people. May it be used to restore relationships and increase peace, understanding, and compassion among our nation's youth. Requiem. There was a time long ago when wolf and man lived wild and free, when the whiteskins lived far away across the salt water. The woods were big then and the forests thick. Elk and moose were plentiful, the rivers clear and full of fish. Counseled by the wisdom of the old ones and guided by the Spirit, we lived in harmony with Mother Earth, wolf and man together, yet apart. There was a time before the loggers cut the great pines and floated them down the rivers, before the traders used furs and skins to clothe the white ones across the big water, before they made us believe that our ways were evil and our wisdom was foolishness, before they controlled us, contained us, tamed us, restrained us, before the diseases, the guns, the metal traps, the poison bait, there was a time before we were savages, wolf and man together both. There was a time long ago. Prologue. The boy was tied to the courtyard post by his wrists. The rest of the students had to gather around and watch, as if the whipping was a powwow at the summer camp of the people. The whip was made of rawhide strips, each with a knot at the end. They ate into the flesh of his back and coiled around his rib cage. It was worse than any pain he had ever felt, and he bit down on his lip until he tasted blood and didn't cry out. The other boys were silent until the very end, and then a strange thing happened. One started to stomp his boot on the ground in a slow, mournful rhythm, like a drum beat. Another boy picked up the rhythm, and another, until every boy in the school stomped as one, until the ground pulsed, until the master had shouted himself hoarse. Chapter 1. The Algonquin Wilderness, Ontario, Canada, 1885. The men slowly reached for their rifles, eyes searching through the lengthening shadows. They appeared calm, almost serene, but the moment they set eyes on the wolves, fear had tainted their sweat. Tall Legs had discerned the change. He signaled Tika and the pups to drop to the ground. The uprights he had encountered in his 6 years of life were not a threat to him, or he to them. They didn't have the teeth, claws, and speed of his kind, or the formidable antlers and hind legs of the moose or elk. But these uprights were different. Their pungent odor burned his nostrils. The hackles rose along his spine and his heart beat faster. However, hunger gnawed at his stomach, and the meat that lay on the trestle table was tempting. He crouched low, his sensitive nose taking in every detail. "Big one's mine," the lumberjack drawled, his hand inching toward the rifle that was dropped at his side. "Nice and slow. Don't scare 'em off." Tall Legs turned to flee. The bullet caught him in the rib cage, the impact arcing him into the air. He yelped and thudded to the ground, legs twitching. With explosions reverberating around him, one pup whirled and bolted. He had covered 100 yards before he realized he was alone. He crouched to wait for his family, peering back toward the camp. Everything was still, but his nose and ears told him that something terrible had happened. His paws wanted to flee, but he needed his mother. Taking advantage of the tree cover, he slunk toward her. Tika lay on her side, her head turned toward him, her yellow eyes demanding that he not approach. He flattened himself on the forest floor, his coat melding with the underbrush, one of his ears pointing skyward in a triangle, the other folded in half. He rested his head on his paws and whimpered softly. One of the uprights moved warily toward Tall Legs and kicked the big wolf in the ribs. The pup cringed, but Tall Legs made no movement and no sound. "There's a good pelt on this one. I'll set to skinning him after supper." The smallest pup of the litter lolled with his head resting on his sister's hindquarters. Third pup lay alone. An upright approached them and kicked each one. Pup with the crooked ear flinched, but his siblings didn't leap up and run away. They remained still and silent. "Pelts on these young'uns won't be worth much. They're too small, not worth the effort to skin." "We still need the tails for the bounty." "Yeah, just cut the brushes off." Crooked Ear heard the crunch of blade on bone, then his sister's tail flew through the air, landing with barely a thud on the ground by the tents. Smell of her blood mingling with choking scent of gunfire. Another upright warily approached Tika. "This one's still alive," he shrieked, leaping away like a frightened hare. Tika was gazing into Crooked Ear's eyes when the final bullet tore through her body, lifting her slightly from the ground. Crooked Ear turned and fled. "There's another one!" The lumberjacks unleashed a hail of bullets. Crooked Ear raced into the darkness of the forest. All night he ran, instinct leading him to protected places where the moon barely reached the forest floor. He no longer ran with the playfulness of youth. His puppy days were over. By daybreak his pads were sore and his muscles ached. With heaving flanks he quenched his thirst at a stream. A tree had blown over, wrenching a large bundle of roots from the earth, leaving a sandy hollow in the ground. He collapsed into it, tucking his nose to his flank and encircling his body with his tail. But even as he slept, his legs still ran, and he whimpered and yelped. When he awoke, the day was done, and darkness was once more settling over the forest. Bounding onto the trunk of the fallen tree, he threw back his head and howled, straining to hear any far-off reply from his pack, but only the hoot of an owl answered his call. He was alone. Softly jumping back to the forest floor, he paced in circles, head to the ground, nose urgently snuffling through the dried needles. He scrabbled at a rotting log until it disintegrated and beetles scurried in all directions. He pounced on one, then another, his indecisiveness allowing each to get away. Probing the remainder of the log, he unearthed a nest of plump white larvae. He curled back his lips and daintily picked up a fat grub in his front teeth. Deciding they were edible, he devoured all of them. The hollow under the fallen tree still retained his odor and warmth, and he stayed there for some time. He heard the squeak of a mouse, but it flew through the sky clutched in the talons of a red-tailed hawk. Settling on a limb of a nearby pine, the raptor thrust her beak into the mouse's skull, then delicately peeled the skin from the flesh and ate the body in a single gulp. The scrap of fur fell through the pine fronds. Crooked Ear pounced on it and swallowed. And suddenly he was running again. With each rise of the moon his pace slowed. Grubs and small rodents did not stave off his hunger. He inhaled the different scents, separating one from another, identifying them, judging their distance. One made him drool. His paws followed his nostrils, and he saw a mallard in the wetland. Crouched in the rushes and advanced on his belly. But when he lunged, the duck rose up and beat on beating wings, its webbed feet treading the air, and Crooked Ear sank into the shallows with nothing more than a mouthful of feathers. He recognized another delicious smell. The rabbit moved toward him with rocking hops. Nibbling the grass, it stopped abruptly. For a fraction of a heartbeat it tried to bolt for cover, but Crooked Ear's jaws closed on its neck. Within a minute, nothing remained. Fate, it seemed, had brought Crooked Ear to the summer territory of the people. He had picked up the scent of uprights miles away, not the frightening odor of the lumberjacks and their exploding sticks, but the gentler smell of those who had lived at Clear Lake where he had been born. He howled, but there was no reply. The people heard his cry, but were too preoccupied to indulge in wolf talk the way they had in the past. Were worried about the pale-faced people moving up from the south, cutting down the great white pines. Travelers told stories that seemed impossible to believe, tales of limbless tree trunks being dragged away by teams of horses and floated down the river to another world. Accounts of severed stumps, the girth of 10 men, reports of a vast dead land where there was no birdsong, no chittering or squirrels and chipmunks, no deer, no elk, nothing. Nothing except the strangers who wanted to take all the land for themselves and their four-leggeds. Night after night, the people sat around campfires discussing the latest news, trying to reach a decision about what they should do. They sat in big circles and small. They smoked, sang, drummed, and prayed. For generations they had been able to talk and listen until everyone was in agreement, but the more they talked, the more obvious it became that there was little agreement and that nobody knew what to do. Crooked Ear was afraid to approach the pack of the people uninvited, yet he could not move on. He paced the periphery of the territory, howling each night, listening for a reply that would invite him to draw near. When his forlorn call was answered, he bolted toward the howl and slithered to a stop in front of a small upright. Boy and wolf had not met face to face before, but each had a vague sensation that they knew the other. More than 2 moons had come and gone since they both lived at Clear Lake, the wolf in the forest on the ridge, the boy in the winter camp on the beach below. It had been a crisp, clear night, right before the spring elk hunt, when wolf and humans' bellies were fuller than they had been all winter. The moon had risen and the sound of the drumming pulsed across the ridge. The wolves had trotted to the outcrop of smooth, ancient slabs that tilted toward the crest of the ridge and had listened to the strains of the people. Then, in a tradition as old as the rocks in which they stood, the alpha had thrown back his head and howled. The sound traveled easily through the still night air. The people heard and responded. Crooked Ear had weaved through the pack that night and trotted to the highest spot on the ridge. Silhouetted against the star-studded sky and clearly distinguished by his ears, one pointing like a triangle to the sky, the other folded in half, the young wolf had thrown back his head and given his first puppy howl. Down on the beach, close to the fire, wrapped in his grandfather's blanket, the boy had cupped his hands around his mouth and howled a reply. Now, face to face with the child, the young wolf bowed down on his front legs, haunches pointed skyward, lowered ears and waving tail, gesturing submission and friendship. He who whistles blocked his son from running toward the wolf pup. He is small, but his teeth are sharp. Where is his mother? Red Wolf asked. If she was close, she would speak, he who whistles replied. I fear she is dead. Crooked Ear rolled onto his back, exposing his vulnerable soft belly to the new pack. It was a gesture that the people understood. He says that he will not harm us. He wants to be friends. He who whistles approached the young wolf slowly and squatted a few feet away, but when he reached out to stroke the pup's head, Crooked Ear scrambled to his feet and jumped back. Compassion filled He who whistles' heart. He is starving. Look at his ribs. Red Wolf tugged at his father's hand. Can we feed him? Yes, son. The hunting has been good. We have meat. Go get some. When the child returned with chunks of venison, it didn't take long for the pup to eat from his hand. Then, his hunger satisfied, he leaned his head into the gentle touch of the small human. For the first time in weeks, the pup was content. Days were warm and long, and Crooked Ear's rough, malnourished puppy fur was replaced by a sleek coat of healthy juvenile. His loneliness vanished along with the hunger in his belly. He was as comfortable with the small upright as he had been with his brothers and sisters, rubbing against him, pushing his head under the soft, hairless hands, licking the smooth, flat face, and encouraging him to romp like a wolf pup. The boy understood the games, but yelped louder than any wolf pup when Crooked Ear nipped or scratched him. Noise startled Crooked Ear, so much that he soon learned to play with his soft paws and gentle mouth. Crooked Ear was cautious around the other uprights. They were unpredictable. They might ignore him or they might run at him, waving their arms and shouting. Sometimes they hurled sticks and stones in his direction. When that happened, he ran into the forest. He caught mice, and if he was lucky, a rabbit or a grouse, but after a while he returned to the human pack, slipping in and out of the shadows and flattening himself into the undergrowth until his senses told him that it was safe to go to the boy. At night-time, when the people went into their dwellings, He who whistles sent Crooked Ear away. The wolf is a wild creature, he told his son. He must learn to take care of himself so he can live wild and free, and the way the Great Spirit intended. He has his own path to walk, and we must let him find it. But when all was still, Crooked Ear crept back. He listened for the rhythmic breathing of the family and lay down against the wall of the wigwam, closest to where the boy slept. At dawn, before the people stirred, he stole back into the bush and waited patiently until the boy came looking for him. Crooked Ear had become accustomed to the smells of the people, but one day his nostrils quivered at an unfamiliar odor. He didn't like it. He whined softly. The people didn't seem alarmed by the smell, and the boy ignored his warning, so Crooked Ear took refuge in the forest. Red Wolf was the first to see the stranger as he rode into camp, but it was the horse that captured his attention, not the heavy-set man or the dog that accompanied him. The child had never seen such a beautiful creature. Its coat gleamed in the sunlight, like beech leaves in autumn, and its mane flowed over its neck and shoulder like a waterfall. The man heaved himself from the saddle, hitched the horse to a tree, and moving with the discomfort of one who had spent too many hours in the saddle, approached the gathering group of people. The boy ignored his father's command to sit in the circle. Instead, he stood close to the horse, captivated, as it delicately tugged leaves from the tree and worked to get them past the heavy metal bit. Green slobber frothed from the animal's lips, and a sodden mess fell to the ground. Red Wolf laughed. Stranger was a white-skin, but he spoke in Algonquin, a language that had the same roots as their own, Anishnaabek, and was not hard for the people to understand. He told them he was the government Indian agent, and that loggers would soon be moving into the area. He said they must pick up their wigwams and leave immediately. "We live on this land," the chief stated. "They cannot cut trees here. We hunt and—" "The land's been sold," the agent interrupted. "Sold?" the chief asked, questioning the others as well as the stranger. "Our fathers and our fathers' fathers have lived here for generations." The Indian agent brandished a paper. "This is the title to the land. It says here that we own the land, and you don't." The people passed the paper from one to the other, confusion on their faces. The chief tossed the paper to the ground in disdain. "These scratchy lines mean nothing to us." "This is a deed," the agent said, retrieving the document and dusting it off. "It might mean nothing to you, but it means everything to the real people. It's legal. Settlers with lawful title are ready to move onto your land. You get out, or these trees will fall on you." "This is the land of the people, Anishnaabek," the chief announced firmly. The others agreed, anger simmering in their voices. The agent held up his hands, revealing the gun holstered on his hip. "Go to the reserve. You will each have your own piece of land. You can build proper homes. You can hunt, farm, do whatever you like. The land will be yours, and nobody will ever be able to move you on again." "Why should we move to a new place? Our ancestors have lived and died here since time began," one man said. "Their bones rest in the soil. We cannot leave their spirits here," added another. "If we go to this new place, maybe the fishing will not be good. Maybe the herds will not pass by." The Indian agent realized that he was not convincing these people. "The government will give you money to buy food. You won't ever go hungry in the winter." He seemed to have struck a chord with a few of the people. "There's even going to be a school. Education is the way of advancement in the modern world. It's the future." There were a few nods. The conversation grew louder and more animated, but Red Wolf didn't hear it. He had unhitched the reins and was leading the horse to a patch of grass. Suddenly the air was filled with a strident voice. "Where's my horse? Who took my horse?" Frantically looking around, the Indian agent spotted the rump of the chestnut gelding disappearing into the distance, its long golden tail swishing from side to side. A small boy walked alongside the horse. Outraged, the agent broke into a shuffling run, flapping his arms and grunting with the effort. Dog joined the fray, bounding ahead and barking with excitement. "Stop! Horse thief!" the Indian agent yelled over and over. Red Wolf stopped, wondering what all the commotion was about. "The horse is hungry," he explained. "I take him where the grass grows best." "Have your parents not taught you to respect other people's?" The agent searched for the word in Algonquin, but there was not one, so he used the English word, property. "What is property?" Red Wolf inquired. "Owning things. That horse is for me and nobody else, especially not you. You can't just walk off with other people's property." The boy raised his head and looked squarely into the eyes of the white man. They were unlike any eyes he had seen before, the color of a pale blue winter sky, fringed with lashes like dried grass. "Everything is for everyone," Red Wolf said. "How old are you, horse thief?" The child frowned. The man rephrased the question in a manner that the boy understood. "How many summers have you seen?" "5, I am told. I am not a horse thief. I was just 5, eh? You'll be in school soon. Then you'll learn some respect." Gathering up the reins, the agent pulled himself into the saddle and wheeled the horse around. "I won't forget you, horse thief," he shouted, kicking the gelding forcefully with his heels. The horse flattened its ears and bounded into a canter. "We'll meet again soon, and then I'll teach you a lesson." Chapter 2. The people were divided. Some wanted to migrate further north, hoping to find another area that was rich with game and fish, a place where the white man would never come. "There is no such place," the others said. Voices were strident as everyone tried to make his or her point. "Many whiteskins are coming, and more than all of our people. They are greedy. They want everything for themselves. Why do they cut down the trees that hold all of our creation together?" Nobody knew. A woman whose weathered face bore the signature of a long life of hardship struggled to stand. Gradually the discussion stopped, everyone waiting to hear the old woman's wisdom. "For the sake of the young ones, go to this place they call reserve, where the children will never be hungry. The Great Spirit teaches us to care for everyone. The old ones will soon leave our wigwams and go to meet their ancestors. The young ones who have recently come into our wigwams, filling us up again with love and hope, and the generations in between. Today it is hard to know what is best for us all, so I ask you to choose what is best for the children. They will carry the life of the people forward. For their sake, I beg you, please do not go where the snows will be deeper and the winters colder, where the game may not come and the fish may not swim, where your baby's lusty cries will grow weak and fade to silence. Go to a place where you will have shelter, where at the end of a long winter you will still have food to fill your children's bellies." "But what about the life?" a man asked. "Anishnaabek b'mazuin, the life of hunting, trapping, and fishing, of gathering the bounty of Mother Earth, the life to roam throughout the land of our grandfathers." "What good is this life," replied the old woman, "if our children have starved to death?" For a while there was silence. Even those who opposed the old woman's views gave her the respect she deserved. But the passion to live off the land was powerful, especially in the young men. Later that evening they gathered in smaller groups, eager to voice their opinions. He who whistles was one of reason. "The pale-faced one is asking us to make our mark on this treaty," he said. "He waves his markings at us and tells us what it means. But we cannot interpret the scratchy lines. Some of you have said that the whiteskins are not to be trusted. Should we trust their signs?" There was movement of heads. No. He who whistles continued. "We have learned to read the signs of the animals, signs that help us and protect us from harm. Now your young ones must learn to read these new signs. Then, in days to come, we will not be deceived." He sighed heavily. "I do not wish to go to the reserve that they speak of, but I will go. I will go because they will make school for my son. We do not need their school. We teach our children everything they must know, just as our fathers taught us." "We live in different times," he who whistles replied. "We cannot teach our children the ways of the whiteskins. They must go to school and become part of the new world. Our sons and our daughters are the future. In the end, there was no agreement. Some decided to stay and fight the loggers, even though they knew their bows and arrows were poor defense against the exploding sticks of the whiteskins. Others decided to leave the area in search of a new hunting ground. But he who whistles in the hope of a better future made his mark on the government paper, and with his wife, his parents, and his son followed the guide to the reserve. As the family gathered all its possessions and walked away, Crooked Ear whined softly from his hiding place among the trees. The guide's short fire stick had not exploded like the long ones in the wolf's memory, but it had the same acrid burning smell. The intense odor filled his gut with terror and rooted his oversized paws to the spot. He trembled. He wanted to lope after the little upright, but he couldn't. As the human procession faded from his eyes, and eventually even from his nose, another type of horror began to gnaw at his stomach. Loneliness. With the loneliness came panic. He wanted to run from the invisible enemy, just as he had at that fateful night 2 moons ago when he had fled from the ground that claimed the blood of his family. Back then, weeks of running had left him exhausted, starving, and close to death. Miraculously, he had found the little upright and had become alive again. But now the little upright, too, had gone. His nose searched out the delicate scent of the boy from among the innumerable terrifying smells. When he found what he was hunting for, he snuffled his warm breath into the earth, disturbing the aroma and enriching it. He inhaled deeply. It was comforting. Then, slinking in and out of the shadows, his coat blended perfectly with the undergrowth. He followed the little upright, who in turn followed the human with the fire stick. The young wolf had no choice. Neither did the young boy. After many days, he who whistles and his family reached a clearing where wigwams were pitched among log cabins and shacks. At first sight, the area seemed deserted, but soon men and women trickled out of the dwellings and stood watching. There was no joy in their faces, no laughter on their lips, and there were no children. He who whistles' heart sank. "Where are the children?" he asked. "They're at school," the guide replied in Algonquin. He who whistles brightened. "Where's the school?" he asked, his eyes searching the buildings. "Over in Bruce County," the man said, with a sweeping motion. "How far?" "A 5-day walk." "You said it would be here, on this land, our land." "You got it wrong. Why would the government build a school here just for a few Indians, and another one somewhere else for a few more? Makes no sense, does it?" The guy didn't wait for an answer. "There's one large school in Bruce County. It's a boarding school. Your boy will live there." He who whistles screamed with rage. It was a sound he had never made before. "Calm down, Indian," the man ordered, drawing his gun. "Step back. Let's talk about this. Real calm." He who whistles knew the power of the white man's fire stick. If angered, it would explode and take his life. How would he be able to protect his family then? He did what he thought was best. He backed up and hid his emotions in a stony face. "He is my son," he stated, his voice flat and controlled. "You're wrong. The boy's a ward of the government now. He goes to school. That's the law." Algonquin words did not exist for some of the things the man wanted to say, so he interjected English words. "Break the law, and we'll lock you up and throw away the key. Understand?" He who whistles did not understand. "I put my mark on your paper because you said there would be a school here. No school? Then we leave this place. We go home." "Too late now," the man said. "You signed. That makes you part of the Indian Act. This is your home now. As for your son, he belongs to the government." "No, he will stay with his mother and me. We will teach him the Anishnaabek way." "Don't you understand? You have no parental rights. The Indian Act, sections 113 to 122, took your rights away. The boy goes to school. You should have read what you were signing." He who whistles' rage was barely concealed. He had been deceived. He had made his mark on the white skin's paper, trusting their spoken words, even though he had been warned that the pale-faced ones were not to be trusted. He had been a fool. And now he was losing his son. He wanted to push his blade deep into the man's gut and twist it upwards, but confronted with the revolver aimed at his chest, he struggled to hold his violent emotions in a motionless body. Starwoman's eyes were filled with tears, and her voice quivered. "Don't take him from us, please." The man's heart softened. Thinking the crisis was over, he holstered his gun. "The government intends to educate these children and make them Christian. It will be easier for everyone if you cooperate." "Who will look after him?" Starwoman asked, panic rising in her throat. "He needs me. He has seen only 5 summers." "He'll be treated well. The house mother at the school cares for the little Indians like they were her own." "But he is my son," Starwoman protested.